Hey there, folks, and thanks for joining me again. Under gravel filters. That's what we're here to talk about today. How to set one up in your tank. The easiest and cheapest way, the best way to give you awesome plant growth. That will be the ultimate goal in this video. Most of my tanks that you can see back here behind me and scattered about in my basement here are planted tanks. I don't do a lot of aquascaping. I do more of just the planted tanks. So I'm going to show you how to use an under gravel filter to maximize the plant growth, to really create a very beneficial, easy to care for ecosystem that doesn't require a lot of outside assistance, can live off itself for a while, and most importantly, has a low amount of algae. So one of the first things we got to do here is actually find a place in this room to put another tank. I've already got 40 something bodies of water in this room, so I'm gonna have to clear off a little space to put a new tank in. So that's what we're looking at right now, is how I'm gonna get this situated on this little table right here. What am I gonna use to power the tank, and how does it need to sit? Well, luckily I have an air outlet right here by this little side table that I made here. It's powering a lot of these tanks, so I'm going to tear down this 5-gallon tank. I'm going to take this 2.5-gallon tank upstairs and put it by the window and let it just work off of natural sunlight. And this Wallstead bowl will just go somewhere else in the room. It never has had a dedicated light. And that will leave me a little open space in this area. I will have not too much more exposed water, because that's really the point of no return in here, is coming up, where my dehumidifier is not able to keep things in check with all of these fish tanks. So I may put a top on this tank. We'll see how it goes. I may just let it go and see what happens. So now that we got it cleaned off, I've got to pull this little side table out, and I'm going to add in some wood to the back. This is a 2x3. It's just some scrap wood. I'm gonna put this on the back side to add a little bit of width so that I can still put my plants up on the front of this. I do apologize for the upcoming very poor audio quality you're about to experience. Please forgive me. I was experimenting with a USB mic and it did not turn out well. So there is part of this video where this audio is almost intolerable, but it will clean up towards the end and I will be going back to analog for the foreseeable future. Thanks, guys. So what we have right here are the components that we are going to use to set up this under gravel filter. We've got the 2 filter plates here, and these have some punch out tabs on the edge of them, which I will cut out in just a moment. And those will punch out and connect to each other with these little connectors. We've got our lower output tube, which we'll figure out where we want it on the system, which I'll actually probably put it in that corner. But it fits into the little slot, and then you twist it and it locks in. That's a really good design that keeps you from pulling that out later. And then the upper output tube slips right down in there, and this gives us a pretty good amount of adjustability, a few inches of adjustability there for our height. Then we've got our actually output mouth here, which is going to fit on top. But first, we're going to take our rigid air line and our air stone that is supplied. We will hook these guys up and then feed those through our little output mouth here. That air stone is going to go all the way to the bottom, and the mouth is going to fit right over our output tube, our upper tube. And with that air stone all the way at the bottom, we get a little O-ring here, which went somewhere to put over the top of this to let you know how far down. There's my O-ring. So it lets you know that your air stone is all the way at the bottom. And that enables that air, as it is rising up through this tube, to pull water with it, and it works as a water pump. So now I'm going to get this installed in our 20 long, and you'll see how it fits in the bottom real nice. One thing I did not mention, I will have to cut this upper tube a little bit so that it sits at the right height for this particular tank. If I was using a 20 high or 29 gallon, you would not need to cut this tube. But I will cut it with a fine tooth saw. Now, cutting these little tabs out can be tricky. You should be able to see the outlines of them there on the camera. Be careful. I use a razor blade to do this. It can be dangerous. And then they just break off most of the time. Sometimes you got to come back in there and give them a little extra persuasion. But be careful you don't just go cutting them off all over the place, because I don't want these on the outside edge cut. I only want the inside edges that are going to connect these 2 plates together. This is probably the trickiest part of the whole thing, is getting these little connectors to sit properly with the little tabs. They don't really stick, so you have to do this in the tank. Notice these plates fit almost perfectly in a standard aquarium tank. Penplax makes a really good product, and that's what I suggest for under gravel filters. I have not tried any other brands because there's really no reason. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, so to speak. So I really like these. They're the least expensive, and they are one of the older brands, but it works. So after some real coaxing and pulling it out of the tank, this one fits really tight, which is actually a lot better than most of them. But our substrate is going to have to be quite deep to make all this work compared to, say, a regular old sand tank. So now we'll take our output tubes and see exactly how much of this I might need to cut off. So I'm thinking my output is going to be in this back corner. So I'm going to go ahead and get this piece locked in. Get my upper output tube, slide it in, and I want to give it a fair amount of place. So I'm going to situate it in the middle of the throw of this bottom tube, and then I'm going to cut it to the highest point that I'm going to need the output to be. So I'm going to need it about right there, equal with the top of the actual edge. So I'm going to cut this sucker right about there. Just keeping my place with my thumb. I'm going to saw it, bring it back. So I got my output tube cut, and one thing I'm a little careful with is I don't want a lot of little plastic fragments getting in there, so I clean that up with some sandpaper pretty good. And now we are ready to really install our output mouth here and slot that thing in. And there we go. I'm going to adjust that little O-ring so that I know my air stone is actually touching the bottom. That O-ring will give me a little hint. I can adjust my flow. I can shoot it straight down. I can shoot it across. I can shoot it wherever I want. I could add multiple outputs. There's up to 4. If you are apprehensive about cutting these things, don't worry about it. You get 4 of them. So we've got the plates set up in the bottom of the tank. We've got our output tube cut and installed with the air stone and the output mouth. It's at this time that if I was going to use sand or some kind of topsoil or any kind of very fine particled substrate, I would add a layer of landscape fabric to the top of these plates. Maybe even wrap it around them. I've done it both ways. I hadn't noticed a big difference. But adding that sheet of landscape fabric will keep those fine particles from migrating through the slits in the plate. Tractor Supply. Let's see if we can find some safety Zorb. That's 16. Bam. Safety Zorb. So now we've got our substrate mixed up, and this is where it gets a little tricky. If I calculated the wrong amount, I'm going to have to mix up some more. So I may have to start all over from the beginning. We'll see. As I fill this up, I'm going to do my best to fill in the edges first so that the plates don't move around very much. but we'll see how it goes. Now, all this dust and mist you see in the tank right now is mostly from the safety absorb. You can hardly get that stuff all the way clean. It's virtually impossible, but that stuff will settle out really quick. And once this runs overnight, when I come back tomorrow, it will be crystal clear. You really see it churning up that dirt. Believe it or not, that will clear up. I may have to do a water change or two, but that will clear up over time. So it was very cloudy. It wasn't clearing up as fast as I want, so I decided to do a bit of a water change. So I've got it cycling through here where new water is coming in. The under gravel filter is pulling stuff up, and the siphon is pulling it out. I'll run a couple of cycles through here. I'm about to shut it off in a minute. But we're back to do some planning on this tank. Now, this is the wonderful thing about having a fully functioning fish room, is that I'm just pulling plants out of that tank right there, taking some trimmings, and that's how I'm going to plant this entire tank, is from 2 or 3 of these other guys right here in the room. Now, I have a rough idea in my head of how I want these plants to be in here, and I'm not going to use anything that you would call tall, because this is a short tank. So none of these plants are going to grow particularly high. They're all going to be kind of medium to low growing plants. And that is going to work in this 20-gallon long to my advantage. Now, what I'm planting right now in the back is this needle leaf Ludwigia, which is a really great plant. It grows very well with CO2, which we are going to include in this tank. Now, when I'm harvesting these plants, I'm just grabbing them with my fingers and pinching them and cutting them with my fingernails. When you replant them, you have to make sure you get the right end. If you plant the upper end into the substrate, the plant will not grow very well. It'll take it a long time to kind of change direction. Now, planting these Ludwigias into this super chunky substrate is very easy. This is much, much easier to manage than a sand or even an aquarium gravel. This stuff is so chunky. It's such large pieces that it just works really, really well. So if you're a beginner, this is even better for you. Now, what I'm trying to do here is create a large bush in the back. You can't see that yet, but we'll come back in a minute when I get some of this planted up and see how it's looking. So here we are back the next day, and it looks really good. It is super clear. Everything looks great. Now, full disclosure, I did have to put a hang on the back filter on here to pull some of that dust that had gotten into the water out. Sometimes these substrates need a lot of washing, and I washed the safety Zorb and the Akadama and the calcined clay a couple of times, but I didn't wash the fluorite red enough, and so it got a lot of dust in there. The second time I washed some of these things was in the dark, so I just didn't do as good a job as I should have. So I threw a hang on the back on there, stuffed some filter floss in there, and I'm going to let that run probably till tomorrow, and then I think I'm going to take that off altogether. I may put another filter on here, but yeah, it's looking really good. Got the CO2 hooked up on this. Now, with CO2 here in my world, I run them all at about 1 bubble per second. I do not use a drop checker. I just use a little bit of CO2, a lot less than what some people prescribe, but I've had really good success just as long as there's some CO2 going in. It seems to really make all the difference. But those are some really cool plants. I've got, I think, I was counting up earlier, I believe there's 10 different plants in here. If you bought these separately, and this is the real problem when you're setting this up as a beginner. If I was to purchase this and these plants online or from a store, you're probably going to be in at about 100 to 150 bucks if you bought that many plants. But if you have other tanks, it really becomes just recycling. I'm just using something I was going to throw away anyway. And I've got all kinds of cool plants. The needle leaf Ludwigia, the Rotala red, Rotala green. A lot of different Ludwigia species with different kind of growth patterns and sizes. I could name them all off, but I've got a lot in there. There's some Bacopa in there, all kinds of things. Really turned out well. I really like how the substrate looks. The undergravel filter is working well. It's pumping pretty fast. You can see all the bubbles back there drawing that water up and out of the mouth. Let's see if I can turn this hang on the back down. You can definitely see it is moving some water through that undergravel filter. Yes, the hang on the back is still moving a lot of water, but that undergravel filter is really doing its job. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Overall, with price, what are we talking about here? Well, the aquarium doesn't cost that much. You guys know how much those cost if you got it at retail. It's pretty steep, but I think it was 35 bucks. I just got it on the 50% off or 40% off, whatever their deal is at PetSmart. The undergravel filter I think was 20. Penplax brand, that's what I would suggest using. And then the CO2 setup is 80. I use the Clasia, I think is how you pronounce it. You can see the name. I don't think it'll come through. But they're available on Amazon, and they're the ones where you add your own baking soda and citric acid. I really like those. I've got several of their setups. They work wonderful. So outside of the cost of the plants, it's a relatively inexpensive setup. Maybe 200 bucks you're in it. And if you spend, 150 on plants, that's $350 for what I would consider to be a really super easy to care for and really aesthetically pleasing aquarium. I'm just really into the whole planted Dutch style tank. I really like the way it looks. Excuse this top of the hang on the back sitting there. But I got my plants kind of set back up in a way that doesn't look terrible. It took me a little minute to figure out how all this was going to sit in my room here. This aquarium does not have a dedicated light. It's running, it's getting power from this LED grow light right up there, which is not even directly above it. I was testing it with my light meter earlier, and it's getting about 1,200 lumens, 1,200 foot candles. So it's like, for house, in the world of houseplants, this aquarium is getting what you would call very good light, high light. But compared to an aquarium, and unfortunately this one's light went out on the timer a minute ago, it's on a pop bloom light, but that one gets about 3,900 foot candles. This one right here is on a F zone light, and it's getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 foot candles too. So we will see how these plants do. I think just by what I have learned here recently, and I'll make a video about this coming up, it's not necessarily the outright intensity of the light that's going to affect these as much as the usable light, or what the measurement is, the ppfd measurement, which is the amount of usable light that the plants have. And I think that with these grow lights I'm using here, with the combination that's hitting all of these plants we're looking at, they're all growing so well. I just don't see how those aren't going to do good, but it's gonna be a cool test. I can't wait to see. So anyway, I hope you folks enjoyed this video on how to construct your own, how to set up your own under gravel filter in your aquarium. Just to quickly recap any points that you guys missed, the chunky substrate is a critical aspect, if you ask me. You can get by with sand, you can put in some topsoil or some compost. People have used all kinds of things, and I know that they will work. But for me, I really like this fired clay substrates. This is a mix of the Akadama and the calcined clay and the volcanic Eco Complete with the safety Zorb. All those things, not so much the Eco Complete, but all those other things will absorb nutrients, which I have fertilized this. They will absorb the nutrients and slowly release them back to the plants. And any excess nutrients they will absorb, and the plants will be able to use them. And here we are, the next day. This is 2 days after initial setup. I removed the hang on the back filter. I gave it about a 10% water change, and things are looking fantastic. This tank looks really great now. Might not be your style if you're into heavy aquascaping and stuff, but I really like the Dutch style. These plants, just like when you see some landscaping outside, when it's first done, it looks a little sparse, but they will grow in. I like the contrasting colors. There's a lot of different Ludwigias out there that they all grow well in my water, and this tank is really going to show them off. The Rotalas actually already purling, and everything has perked up. I doubt it has rooted yet, but looking really good. Super clean, super clear water. Let's look at it from the top. It's cool. Look down on it like a pond. Now, to clarify a couple things for any of you newer folks or folks who are unfamiliar with under gravel filters. First of all, watch my other video on under gravel filters. But oftentimes we use these in conjunction with another filter. Just because it's called an under gravel filter does not mean it will meet all your filtration needs depending on what your stocking level, what kind of fish or shrimp or whatever you're running in here. This tank right here, I will eventually probably put some fish in it, maybe definitely some shrimp. There are some snails who kind of hitched a ride on some of the plants. They're already doing their thing in there, so I'll kind of let them go for another week or two, then put some shrimp in. But if I put a lot of fish in here at some point, I will probably put a canister filter on here as well. And the under gravel filter's primary job here in this setup is to move that water through the substrate. I don't really care how much it's filtering it because there's no fish in there right now, so it doesn't matter. But they do filter, don't get me wrong. But if you have a highly stocked tank, you may have to add a hang on the back or an internal or a canister filter to really get everything working the way that you want it to. But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate y'all watching my videos. If you've gotten anything out of this, please like and subscribe. That is the only way that I will get to exist here in this digital world of YouTube. That's the only way you guys will get to hang out with me, is if you subscribe to my channel, so please do that. And we'll come back in the future and do some more cool things. I've got an upcoming video planned for a 20 high with under gravel filter, and that one I'm going to try to do some aquascaping on, so stay tuned for that. I really appreciate you guys tuning into my channel. It's so much fun making these videos and sharing my fish room and all this stuff with everybody. I'm very grateful. So yeah, we'll see you guys next time.